What's going on, everybody? My name is Chris. Welcome to LinuxTechGeek. So in today's video, I want to talk about virtual machines. Now, virtual machines have been around forever, and the main reason I really want to discuss virtual machines today is because I get a lot of questions here on my channel about installing Gentoo. And if you read some of the answers that I reply with, I always tell you guys, if you've never installed Gentoo, or if you're nervous about installing Gentoo, install it in a virtual machine. The reason I always say this is simply because if you don't know how to do something and you screw it up in a virtual machine, well, big deal, right? At least you didn't screw it up on your actual main system. And I also feel like even though I mentioned virtual machines quite a lot, some of you guys, most of you, I'm pretty sure, know how to set up a virtual machine and everything, but I bet there's a couple of you guys that had never even used a virtual machine before, and you may not even know how to set one up properly. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you two popular virtual machines that we use here in Linux, and I'm going to run you through how to actually set them up so that way you can properly use them. Okay, now this is not a Gentoo specific video or anything like that. You can install these virtual machines on any Linux distribution. On one of these virtual machines, it is cross-platform. The other one I'm going to show you is not cross-platform. All right, so let's go ahead and flip over to the desktop and we'll begin. So the first virtual machine that we're going to talk about today is VirtualBox. Now VirtualBox has been around forever. It's Oracle's product, okay? Now this is the virtual machine that is cross-platform. I'm not 100% if it works on Mac, but I do know it works on Windows, and of course it works here on Linux. So let me go ahead and open up a VirtualBox. Okay, and then flip to the screen where it's up. So when you launch VirtualBox here, you're gonna get a little dialog box, okay? And then what you need to actually do is you need to click New. So we click New, and then you're gonna get another dialog box that pulls up here, and you're gonna name your virtual machine, okay? So I'm just gonna name it test_virt. Now, if I was seriously doing this, I would give it more of, I would give it a better name such as Arch Linux Virt or Gentoo Virt or Red Hat Virt, whatever, right? But this is just going to be a test, so I'm not really going to give it a name. I'm probably going to delete this after I make this video. So the next thing we need to do is we need to give it an ISO image. So if you've downloaded an ISO image from your favorite Linux distribution's website or anything like that, this is where you tell the virtual machine, hey, this is where your ISO is. So I'm going to go to other, then I'm going to have another dialog box that pulls up here, go to downloads, and I'm just going to pick the live GUI. This is for Gentoo, the Gentoo live GUI. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is we need to go to type, okay, and we need to select Linux because it is Linux. And then I'm going to see if they have Gentoo in this list. Looks like they do. Now sometimes the list, sometimes your distribution that you picked out will not be in this list. If that's the case, you can always just give it a generic name like the 2.6 64-bit up here. But since this is Gentoo, I'm going to select Gentoo 64-bit. Okay. Then we're going to click Next. And then this is where I give it specs, right? This is where I give it memory, I give it how many processors I want to give it, and stuff like that. So base memory, I'm just going to do, I don't know, I'll give it I'll give it like 8 gigs. And processors, I'll give it 8. And then what I also want to do, most of the time you do, if you're practicing installing this for real, you may want to give it EFI, because most systems these days are EFI. Okay, so we're going to click this enable EFI. Now, if you're just using a virtual machine just to use a virtual machine and you're not doing anything serious, you don't need UEFI. You don't need that support. Okay, but like I said, if you are seriously testing this to um, because you eventually want to install this on actual hardware, then in my personal opinion, it's best to simulate actual hardware as much as you can, right? So we're gonna go next, and now it wants us to create a virtual hard drive. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and just create a virtual hard drive. We're gonna do, I don't know, we'll do 8 gigs. Hit next, and then you can see all the stuff that we're going to give it. So we're giving it 8 gigs, EFI, 8 cores, 8 gigs of RAM, and then the Gen 2 ISO. So hit next, or hit finish rather, and then we're going to hit start. Okay, and now I need to move this window right here. Okay, and now the ISO has booted up. And we'll boot this up. And I'm pretty sure here in VirtualBox we can even do full screen mode. So I'm going to switch that to full screen mode. Okay, cancel that. Now what I want to do is I want to get this resolution fixed here. So let me fix the screen resolution here. Oh my god. There's display right there. And I want to give it 1920 by 1080. So let's apply that right there. We're good. I want to see if I can toggle some of this stuff off. I don't use VirtualBox a lot, so okay, that looks a lot better. Okay, so we got our virtual machine all set up. And now, if we wanted to start doing things like installing Gentoo or installing Arch, well, now we can do this, and it's not going to affect our host machine, right? We can do anything we want in this virtual environment, and it doesn't matter if we screw it up. That's the whole point of a virtual machine. It just doesn't matter, because if we screw it up, guess what we do? We delete it and we can make a new one. It's no big deal, right? So this is VirtualBox. I don't know a whole lot about VirtualBox. There is some settings here. You can check out all the settings. Of course, it picks up like all your USB settings, the network, audio, stuff like that. And then you can also simulate a optical drive if you have like a DVD-ROM or whatever. Now, here on Gentoo, I did install a couple extra packages for VirtualBox. So if you are on Gentoo and you go to install VirtualBox, the wiki has some pretty good information on some of the extra packages that you may want to go ahead and to install along with the VirtualBox package. But let's go ahead and let's go ahead and flip over to my next virtual machine that I want to show you guys. And my personal virtual machine, the one that I always use, and that's Virt-Manager. Now, Virt-Manager is it's a Linux only package, okay? So one of the big benefits of using Virt-Manager over VirtualBox is Virt-Manager can it's as closest to a Linux kernel as possible. I think there's a lot of performance gain with Virt-Manager. Not for sure on that. You can Google this, but pretty much Virt-Manager can talk to the Linux kernel or something where VirtualBox cannot. I think that's the big benefit of using it. Um, Other than the fact that Virt-Manager is pretty easy to set up, and I just prefer it. I've never used VirtualBox. In fact, ever since I kind of quit using Windows, I've never used it. Even when I did, I don't even think I used it when I used Windows, to be honest. Um, but yeah, I mean it's a nice virtual machine. I would say that VirtualBox is a lot easier to set up than Virt-Manager is. However, I prefer Virt-Manager these days. All right, let's go ahead and set up Virt-Manager. Virt-Manager. So Virt-Manager, okay? And then this is the GUI front end, okay? I think the actual virtualization is called QEMU or QEMU. I think that's the actual virtualization behind it. This Virt-Manager, this is essentially this is just the front end that talks to that, right? But you can see we got some virtual machines, okay? Now let's go ahead and make a new one. So I'm gonna hit create a new virtual machine. We're gonna get a dialog box. Then we can go forward and we can select our ISO. So I'm going to select the same ISO. I'm going to select that the Gen 2 ISO. So I'm going to say browse local. Okay. And then live GUI right here. And then of course it doesn't detect the ISO what it is, but Gen 2 is in the list. So we're going to say Gen 2. Okay. And then we're going to hit forward. We're going to give it some RAM. So of course I'm going to give it the same amount, 8 gigs. Okay. And then for cores or CPUs, I'll just give it 8 as well. Hit forward. We can go ahead and create I'll just create a 5 gigabyte disk. Now, if I was doing this seriously, I would give it a lot more. But of course, this is only a test. So, and then we can name it. So we can name this, I'll just say Gen2 underscore test Virt. Okay. And then what I like to do on Virt-Manager is I like to customize some of the options before we fire this thing up. Okay. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but we'll get into that. So I click the customize configuration before install, hit finish, and now another dialog box is going to pull up. And this is where we can customize all of the settings to our heart content, right? So under firmware, remember how I said earlier that if you're doing this to seriously test, to see if you can install something, you want to really you want as close to what you have on your system as much as possible, right? So under firmware, if you click this, you see that UEFI, you have BIOS, which is MBR, and you have UEFI. So I'm going to select UEFI. Okay, we're going to hit apply. Now we don't change the chipset, we keep the chipset the same. I don't know if there's an added benefit of using another chipset, but I've always just used the Q35 chipset. And then right here we can go to OS information. This is where we do the CPUs. Memory, of course, we're gonna give it 8 gigs. Um, right here, the boot options, you can actually enable a boot menu, just like you could with a normal PC. So imagine you get in BIOS and you can select, if you want to boot from your hard drive or if you want to boot from your CD-ROM or whatever. You can do the same exact thing inside this menu. Okay, and then right here where it says Virt-IO disk, so right here, we can actually change this, and we can make this a SATA disk if we wanted to. The only thing this actually does when you change it is that instead of having uh, dev VDA, it'll be dev SDA, right? Because SATA starts, as it's SD whatever, and then virtual machines will be VD. Um, and then right here, so you can have a SATA CD-ROM if you wanted to. Okay, network network stuff. I just keep the Virt IO stuff, but you can even change the device model if you wanted to. Display. Oh, you can change this display spice. I kind of keep it the same. Um, Right here, you can change this video QXL. So this is the video card driver that you're going to use. Now, some video cards, some of the drivers work better than others on certain distros. If you have an AMD GPU as your host, there's something called, I think it's called GPU pass-through. I can't do it on this machine because I run an NVIDIA card. You can even do that if you wanted to. Nice thing too is if you run the Virt-IO video card driver, you can even enable 3D acceleration. I'm not sure if I'll be able to use this or not, but we're going to check it out here and see if we can. And then of course you also get your USBs and stuff like that. Okay, so that's pretty much the settings on this. But let's go ahead and hit begin installation. Yeah, see, it's gonna give me a problem because it can't use that video card 3D acceleration. So if I don't select the 3D acceleration and begin to install, there we go. So you can see it fires right up. Now, I don't know if that has to do with being a NVIDIA user or AMD. I've never really been able to get that 3D acceleration working. I'm pretty sure it's because I am running a NVIDIA card. There are some issues with NVIDIA and some of the stuff, but whatever, right? So we get full screen mode. We can boot this right on up. And hopefully Plasma doesn't give me an issue with this video card. I wouldn't think it would, but we'll see here. Okay, it just took a second, but Plasma started right up. It was a little bit slower than the other video card driver, so that's something to be aware of. But we can select, again, the resolution, and I like to have a pretty decent resolution, so we can keep it. And then now, just like we could in VirtualBox, we could do the same exact thing. If we wanted to install an OS, we could. If we wanted to, I don't know, just remove the root directory for shits and giggles, we can do that as well. So hopefully this has been a basic introduction to virtual machines. I do guys, if you're going to install anything and you're, you know, and you're unsure how to install something, or if you're a person that likes to distro hop a lot and you're kind of tired of distro hopping, but you still want to play around with different distros, install it in a virtual machine. Just get a virtual machine, find one that you like to use, find one that works for you, okay? And install it in a virtual machine. The worst thing that you're going to do in a virtual machine is you're going to brick the virtual machine and you're going to have to wipe it out and start again. But it's not that big of a deal inside a virtual machine. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have to keep reinstalling your main operating system on live hardware over and over and over again. Just stop. You're wasting your time. Install it in the virtual machine, play around, mess it up, brick it, whatever, and then make a new one. Okay? So if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. I do apologize about the lack of videos. Last week was extremely busy, but I am now on my new schedule, so hopefully, the content picks back up. But if you guys have anything, leave it down below and I'll get back to you. All right. Until next time, I want you guys to take care, be safe, and peace. Bye, guys.